Fridays. We are live. Welcome to Feminine Fridays. I'm Laura Rubinstein with the amazing Diane Halfman. Hi, Diane.
Hey, Laura. Good to be here. Good to be with everyone on Friday going into the weekend.
Yeah, and we're here again with another Feminine Fridays. And what do we do on Feminine Fridays? We do something really fun. We remind ourselves that there's many parts of ourselves, and there's this one very special part that we refer to as the feminine. Some people call it yin, right, as opposed to yang. It's where we kind of settle into our heart. We call it the feminine. Here on our Feminine Fridays, we talk about one of the feminine power, a feminine power principle from the feminine power cards. And Diane, I know you're very into talking about the feminine and sourcing a lot of our life through that feminine energy. So is there anything you want to say about the feminine today before we get into our card?
Well, I think it's just one of those, sometimes we hear the word feminine and it feels so ethereal, how do you actually apply it into your life? And so one of the things I use, in my podcast where it's like live your spa life, that SPA is for seek power always. Part of that feminine is that feminine power. It's such a strength and it comes from a place of knowing, right? I mean, there's so much knowledge and information, and that's where we feel overwhelmed and anxiety and all these things. Especially walking into the weekend, it's just so nice to be like, how can we really tap into our knowing? What do we need right now? Where are we at, and what can we do? These just one thing to just allow us to breathe deeper and to just feel more grounded going into the weekend.
Yeah, and I love the idea of being able to look from a different perspective. We're going in our week. We've gotten to this groove. Maybe we've gotten into a rut even, and we just need to get out of it. In fact, just before this, I felt like that, and I was like, I got to get out of here. So I went for a 2-mile walk, and man, what a difference, right? Just shifting the perspective. So we're going to offer a perspective today from the feminine, a feminine power principle from the feminine power cards. This cute little deck, by the way, comes with this cute little organza bag when you get it. But I have a really cool card. This is one of my, they're all my favorites. So I can say they're like all my babies, right? So drum roll, please, for the feminine power card. Yes. Mistakes involve the creative process when you learn from them. Mistakes involve the creative process when you learn from them. That is the principle. So, in other words, let's make mistake making okay. And it's just a little kind of affirmation or exercise. We, on the back of each card, we have something to do, and it's or something to contemplate or an affirmation to state. The star means something to do. This says try again and again. In other words, don't give up. Mistakes are good. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. The first thing that came to mind when you read that is I'm listening to the audiobook of the Perfection Detox. And the woman's name is Petra. In fact, I'm going to be having her on my show next month. And it's one of those things where you look at when you're so stuck in a perfection mindset, you are afraid to make mistakes. It's this paralysis where you're not actually risking and going out because it's not perfect. And so, really coming from a place of, the mistakes are part of that creative process. I love that. If you really incorporate the mistakes are, you learn what doesn't work, right? You look at, well, maybe a part of what doesn't work is actually the foundation of the next thing that you're going to do that does work, right? It all fits in together. And so we can't really isolate anything and say, oh, this container here didn't work, when it actually perfectly works well as part of what's the next step of what you're doing.
Exactly. And you see this, you know what these are, right?
Yes.
Okay. This was a mistake.
Yes.
If anybody knows the story, the glue they were trying to make was not a temporary glue, not like a tape. It was, they were looking for making a permanent glue. And what did they make? They made a non-permanent glue, which turned into a glue for something called Post-it notes, sticky notes. So, when you take a look at a mistake and you judge yourself as a mistake instead of a mistake, but if you judge yourself and it's bad and wrong, you cut down the creative process. If you look at it as a mistake, it's like, oh, well, what does that take, actually? I missed what I wanted to do, but did I do something else, perchance? Right? We could always look at it like, well, what did I do? For what might this be good, as my dear friend, our dear friend, Dr. Roberta Shaler says. That's her favorite, um, one of her favorite questions that we can't start asking ourselves is, for what might this be good? And mistakes, therefore, do exactly what this card said, which is mistakes invoke the creative process, or as they say in Canada, process. And we love our Canadian friends. So, what mistakes have you made that maybe turned out to be good things? Or what mistakes are you judging yourself for right now that, oh my gosh, you could maybe find something that it may be good for? So, and how can you turn it around? That is the question of the day. That is the your charge for our Feminine Fridays, is to give yourself a break, and give yourself an opportunity to say, I am okay. And you know what? What I'm doing is actually probably really good. All right. When you make a mistake, all right, remember, mistakes invoke that creative process, especially if you learn from them. I know the founder of Spanx, she looks forward to mistakes. It's like, what mistake can I make next? You get over this fear of making mistakes when you understand that it's going to get you somewhere forward, like what? Post-it notes out of that mistake of the glue. And you hear of Thomas Edison, trying to invent electricity. So you want to be able to look at your mistakes as a new opportunity. So we love that opportunity to look at your mistakes in a new way, right, Diane? Welcome back.
Absolutely. Talk about mistakes, right? You just never know what's going to happen live.
Yeah, we roll with it. It's all good. It's all perfect. I had
Right?
some brilliant things that you'll go back and watch and see. So sprinkle any thoughts you have here on the show, wherever you're watching. I'm open to your thoughts, and we want to hear from you about what words come to mind, what thoughts, what challenges. Is this a challenging concept? I mean, I think. We have these thought habits, and maybe can relate to them too, Diane. Oh my gosh, is like what I just did, it was terrible. Why did I do that? I started that when I went for my walk. I started down the hill and I was like, why haven't I done this sooner? Gone for a walk. I feel so, my body needs this. La la la. I'm like, wait a minute. Do I really want to beat myself up now? I want to
Yeah.
enjoy my walk, right?
Right, right. Well, it's interesting because I'm in a transition in just the way that I'm doing work and what things look like, and in if somebody kind of looked in what's happened, they could say, well, is what you're doing a mistake, or have you really considered certain things, or do you know where you're going? And I had a friend of mine said, what if you were actually embracing all of it, and it was actually you're on sabbatical, right, where you're taking a break from how things used to be and you're exploring the next iteration. There's such like breathing. I mean, it feels very much from the feminine sense of just like, okay, it feels like I'm embracing all of it. None of it is a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. What if we did that? What if everything was perfect as it is? So this is a really great opportunity to get creative, right? One of the things I was saying, and maybe you know the story about the woman from Spanx. She loves
Yeah.
she loves this option. She looks forward. I think her father taught her about, if you're not failing, you're going backwards, right? If you're not
Right.
failing enough, your business isn't going to succeed eventually. So you
That
have
was
to look.
actually a requirement of her and her brother, that their father said that they had to come to the dinner table with a mistake every night.
There you go. Yeah,
Sarah Brakely.
because I think they did the second part, learning from it, right? So because you can get so much more creative, you can have conversations around it instead of judging it like, oh, like that was bad, don't do that. I was like, okay, well, what did you learn? What would you do differently next time? What's possible with what the outcome is now? Um, I remember being in a car with somebody. I made a wrong turn, and I was like, I looked to the left, and I saw this beautiful decorated house, and I was like, I would have never have seen this amazing creativity in front of me, piece of art, really, if I hadn't made this wrong turn. So mistakes can be good, and I like to actually even word it, as I said earlier, mistakes. Mistakes are good, right? And so, once again, this is a feminine power principle from the deck, the feminine power cards, and you can find more out about them at feminine power cards. I wanted to mention one other thing about them, and I also wanted to mention, Diane, at your website, can people find your podcast link to that? Your spa life, live your spa life podcast.
Yeah, actually, we're in the process of linking that in right now, but you can go on whatever platform that you listen to podcasts, or you can also go to YouTube under my name. So you can go look at it there, but just go to Live Your Spa Life.
Live your spa life. Great. And if you do want the feminine power cards, I am bundling them at womenenjoy.com as well as soon to be on femininepowercards.com. And with these books are voices of the 21st century. They're women's. There's, I think, 50 women in here, 30 women in here who are they've come together to share their stories. We really believe in women sharing their stories and the power of that. When we come together, our voices make a difference. We're in the era of women's voices making a difference. And I know, Diane, that's what you're all about. And so we're here every Friday with you, rocking and rolling, getting into that feminine, settling in. Any advice you want to leave people with for the weekend, their feminine weekend?
I would say step into this weekend without a full plan, right? And see what unfolds. And then notice what mistake happens by just not planning, and look and see what was the benefit of that happening.
I love it. Very juicy. It is juicy to make mistakes. Go for it. There are mistakes. They are opportunities for you to embrace your reality. And I have another client that says, fail forward. If you make a mistake, it's a good thing. It moves you forward because you'll learn from them. It'll invoke that creative process for you. So thank you, Diane. It's always fun to be here with you. And we will be back next week with another Feminine Fridays.
Perfect. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye.